It is January 15th, 2021, lesson 76 in A Course in Miracles student workbook. I'm under no laws but God's. So let's introduce this idea because we get disoriented. What is God's law? God's law is just what we are, okay? That's we are God and we are a reflection of that in the world. Now, we get disoriented with things such as survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. Sometimes we let things such as prestige, status, money, fame, sex, even medical or health, magic, the economy, dictate how we're supposed to move in the world, okay? And when we do this, we actually create bad decisions within ourselves. And that's how we drop our levels of consciousness, if you want to call it that. That's when we lose points, karma points. Now, when we think of karma, we think of predestination. And predestination is not the same thing as karma. Predestination is limitations and outcomes versus what karma is, opportunities and areas of freedom for choice. So we can choose to be loving, we can choose to be caring, or uncaring, or unkind, or kind, okay? Now, I was reading this book, while listening to this book actually, by Scott Adams called God's Debris. And it's a thought experiment that says, what was the most difficult thing that God could do? Which was destroy itself. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, okay? So God destroyed itself, creating the universe, the quantum influx, the Big Bang, and now has created such a perfect world, right? Because the earth, if it were tilted certain degrees left or right, we would burn or freeze to death, right? So according to Michael Singer, the universe cannot repeat itself, right? And that's how it's unfolding for ourselves. Now, it mentions God's debris, the idea of probability, and that probability is the essence of God, and that God is trying to reassemble itself through us, okay? Now, this goes back to predestination, and what is personal free will? So the explanation that I am using is the one from David Hawkins, which says that we are presented with options and choices continuously at every single moment. So as I mentioned before, as Eckhart Tolle says, every moment is designed for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know? This is the moment that you're having right now, okay? So decisions have to be made all the time, whether they're conscious or unconscious, okay? Now this is like a vehicle, this is like a car. We have to align ourselves, we have to basically orient ourselves back and forth, because if not, then we're going to crash or we're going to veer off. So when we're continuously trying to micromanage and overthinking things, that's when we're in the ego. When we sit back and witness things as if it were like a ship, we orient the ship in a direction and let the wind take us where it wants us to go, thus leading us to our destination, right? So we set the intention and the compass is already set, okay? So we have a responsibility to the universe. Basically, we have a responsibility to God as we're trying to reassemble ourselves back into one source. Now, we are only culpable to the knowingness at the level that we're at. So we're always at the developmental stage that we're supposed to be at, okay? It's always unveiling rather than an acquisition, an acquirement. Because if you do things and you're not aware of it, forgive them for they not know what they do, because you didn't know any better, right? You can go back and learn from the lesson. Now, if you don't learn and you're deliberately putting yourself in these situations, what you know is sin, 7 sins, greed, hate, envy, lust, pride, gluttony, sloth, or your 6 ag flap, then you're creating negative karma, okay? And this karma is it's a point system. So you have like a 0.1 or -1, however you want to think about it. And this is going to be reflected within the whole entire universe. Why? Because we are now part of the universe. We are the stardust that is now unifying into one. All one, the law of one, if you want to call it that. Now, I'm going to go over the laws, right? 14 universal laws, and then we have 21 sub-laws that allow us to practice these 14 laws, if that makes sense. And again, I'm under no laws but God's. Okay, so remember these. You can look these up, it doesn't really matter. It's your choice. Okay, it's all a choice. So, first law, divine oneness. Everything is interconnected with everything else, right? So we are part of God, right, as it's trying to unify once again. Next is the law of vibration. Every particle in the universe has a constant movement. So we learn that we are light particles in movement, and that's what we're emanating out. Next is the law of action. Faith alone doesn't get you where you want to be. So action is required. So you can't just wish things. You have to meet the universe halfway. The law of correspondence, okay, which is the idea of as above, so below, as within, so without. Patterns repeat throughout the universe. So the outer reflects the inner. So remember that as you're now understanding, as you see the world, so are you. Next is the law of cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction. Okay, nothing is by chance. And this cause and effect is the law of karma. Basically, you reap what you sow. Next is the law of compensation. You always receive what you put out. Okay, so if you put out abundance, you will receive abundance, right? If you put out scarcity, you will receive scarcity. And that's in the Bible and pretty much any ancient or religious text that you want to read upon. Next is the law of attraction. Okay, like attracts like. And again, what you're putting out is what you're going to receive. Thoughts are things. So just like a magnet, that's what is going to orient your mind. That's what's going to pull your will and your spirit. Okay. Now we're looking at the 8th law, which is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. So for us to change our lives, we have to change our energy for the benefit of us and others. So basically, we cannot solve the problem with the same thinking that we have, with the same level of consciousness, right? We have to think above, right? We have to move into the paradigm above ourselves. And that means sometimes going above our minds, because we're speaking above our heads. Next is the law of gestation. And this is the idea that everything has its own period of development, such as humans and the weeks of pregnancy, months of pregnancy, trees, pretty much anything such as business, right? Everything has its divine timing. And as you're starting to see all the laws prior to this, everything starts to coordinate with one another. Now we're looking at the law of relativity, right? Nothing is good, nothing is bad, right? It's all about perspective. And if we start allowing ourselves to be grateful and seeing that it could be worse, then things start becoming more clear for us, okay? Because we can disorient ourselves on what is real, if that makes sense. Next is the law of belief, okay? Which means that our dominant beliefs and feelings create our reality. And as you saw with the laws before, same thing, okay? Law of rhythm says that there's a natural flow of things, right? There's birth and death, and with any down cycle, there's an up cycle, as Eckhart Tolle says. Finally, we're looking at law 14, which is the law of gender. Everything in the universe has a masculine and feminine energy. And for us to master our lives, we have to balance it, okay? Now, with these 14 laws, we have 21 sub-laws, right? And this is how we learn to practice these 14 universal laws. First law, or sub-law, whatever you want to call it, is aspiration. And these are just actions of right action, okay? Aspiration is strong desire to achieve greater things, soul's ambition to evolve to a higher potential, and eventually back to source. Next is dedication. Devotion or commitment to a cause, person, or mission based on love and desire to serve humanity. Next is self-love. To value, honor, respect one's being, body, mind, and soul, or spirit. Being aware of one's inherent worth teaches us to love others while accepting ourselves. Next is courage. Did I say that was self-love? That was self-love. Next is courage. Firmness of mind and action when facing opposition helps us in making a contribution. Next is honesty. Honor and integrity of a character and action replaces negative karma with positive karma to change our identity. Next is responsibility. Being accountable, following through with conviction, knowing right from wrong, Buddha's Eightfold Path. Next is patience. Ability to bear trials, delays, misfortune, or inaction calmly, balancing the male and female energies within. Next is leadership. positioned to guide or direct others in a divinely inspired way, infusing energy into them to support your vision. Next is non-interference, which I have so much trouble with. Not interfering by judging or interfering with another's decisions or actions, allowing all to grow at their own pace. Okay. Next is praise, to commend, recognize, appreciate, or compliment another, seeing the beauty in others. Next is compassion, sympathetic awareness of another's distress. Compassion replaces judgment. Next is kindness, state or habit of treating others kindly and with respect, having empathy toward others and recognizing our oneness. Next is forgiveness, letting go of judgment, resentment, or calm against another. Unconditional love absolves negative karma and frees self and others. Next is generosity, gift or open-hearted, liberal, unselfish act of kindness, frees us all to evolve. Next is charity, philanthropy or benevolence, goodwill towards humanity, giving with no expectations of return. Next is thankfulness, expressing gratitude for benefits received, kindness that frees the heart to focus on the quality of the moment. Next is faith, trust and conviction in belief with no proof, knowingness, confidence in the universal laws and divine harmony. Next is hope, unending confidence that an expectation will be fulfilled, trusting the soul's ability to evolve. Next is joy, expression of delight, glad feelings, and happiness, seeing the perfection of God's plan. Next is grace, divine assistance given for humanity's sanctification. Grace is about a sense of beauty, balance, harmony, and charm of movements and form. Finally is unconditional love, absolute acceptance of another without any sign of judgment, seeing others as expressions of God through their souls, and grants us freedom.